So I got a couple of requests on the Brickadia Discord to give a quick tutorial on how to create islands like this. So this is an island Brickadia, which is a generic heightmap export of a real-world island, in this case Stewart Island off of New Zealand, which I've made some edits to with flat areas, as you can see over there, over here, so you can actually build something on here. I've removed everything I've built just for the case of showing the island itself, but it's very easy to build on this, some more flat areas there. And people wanted to know how to do this, so I'll make a quick tutorial on how to get an island like this one, or whatever island you can create yourself up and running in game. So what you're gonna do first is get all of the required software. All of it's free, it's just some stuff you need to download. Of course you're gonna need Brickadia, but I hope that much was obvious. You will need paint.net, which is free, so shouldn't really be an issue to get that. You will need a custom plugin, which is also available for free. I'll get into that later. I'm sure you can also do this in GIMP or in Photoshop or whatever. I just don't know how to do it there, so I will not be using that. I'll be using paint.net for this tutorial. You will also need heightmap to BRS, which is a community-made tool, which can actually convert the heightmap that we'll be making, plus a color map that we'll be making, into the actual BRS save file. And what we will also need is World Painter, and World Painter is actually a Minecraft tool. Doesn't really matter, it's a Minecraft tool, we can just export it to a generic heightmap and actually use it in Brickadia, so that shouldn't really be a problem. Everything free, available for free on the internet. I'll supply with all the links, should be an easy install. So as you can see over here, this is actually the map that you're looking at in Brickadia here, it's the same map. The coloring is going to be different because the coloring is not applied via this tool, not via World Painter. We'll do that afterwards. This is really only for the height map, so all that we're going to get from this program is telling the game how high to put each cube here. This is just the exact map that you're looking at here. It can be anything. You can make it from scratch. You can also, if you want, you can import from heightmap, so you can actually get a height map of a real island. You can get a height map of a part of a country. Islands work the best because you have surrounded by water. If you're going to have a country, you're going to have like a straight border where your map stops and the void begins. Islands work, but if you really want to, you can also just do this with a chunk of the area you live in, of an interesting area that you want to build on. But I've chosen Stewart Island, which is like this small-ish island south of New Zealand. The scale I've made it to here makes it about 5.5 kilometers. I think it's like 3 miles top to bottom. But in reality, I think it's like 70 kilometers. So it's scaled down quite a bit, and this translates to roughly, I think, just over a million bricks in game. Yeah, just over 1 million bricks for a 5.5 by 5.5 or 3 mile by 3 mile island, which I think is decent if you compare it to the Brick Party, which is almost at 3 million at the time of recording. This also, I'm on a separate monitor right now, so it's capped at 60 FPS, but it still runs at 144 on my laptop, which is 3060. So the terrain itself is not that taxing on the map. So you just create your island here. I'm not going to create a whole World Painter tutorial because there's plenty of World Painter tutorials out there because it's a Minecraft tool. It's used a lot by people that actually play Minecraft instead of Brickadia. I can go through the quick basics. So most of what I did here is flattening out some terrain, which would be literally just taking this smooth tool, upping the intensity a bit, and then smoothing it out like this. It's actually better to flatten it first, so it actually stays at this height. So if you want to get rid of this mountain, I do it like this, and to make it a bit nicer, I would smooth out like the edge here, so it's not a straight drop down. And that's how I create this. I'm sure you can make it a lot nicer than I've done here. This is really just to do the transition between mountainy and flat. It's pretty crude. It actually works a lot better in game, I feel. It's still a little bit abrupt, but it really beats having to build up of all of these hills, especially what I'm going for, which is mostly going to be roads and railways. It's going to be a pain to get it to slope up there. So I just made everything flat at the same height level here. But this is just a quick example of how you can create flat areas or create some new mountains or make some changes. So for example, what I've done here is make like a track so I can make a nice coastal railroad along the edge here. That's all doable by just flattening and smoothing it out a bit. Now what you might need to do if you start making this is lower the water level, because for Minecraft it's going to be at level 63 I believe by default. I put it at 26 because that corresponds to roughly the water height I set it in, in Brickadia, which of course you can just change the environment settings. You can just move this up like 90 and then it will be flooded. Keep it at 145. Just make sure that it matches here so that your island looks like in World Painter what it will look like in Brickadia, and you can do that by right clicking, which will lower it by 1 level each time you click, or you can left click it, which will increase it. This does not impact your height map whatsoever. It's just nice to have the same visual reference in here as you do in Brickadia, so your island will end up looking the same. Again, these colors here, they don't matter. This is just what World Painter does to show you the height. So at a certain height the grass will stop and it will become dirt, and even higher it will become stone, and it will become snow on the top of the mountains. But we're not going to be using any of this data. We'll be doing that separately in paint.net. I'm going to undo this water change and then this bulge here so it matches up with the map I've already done in game. There we go. So now it looks like the exact map that we started with, and we are going to go through the process of creating an actual Brickadia map from this. So we're going to go to File, Export, and you want this one. Export as the 1:1 low resolution integer height map. You don't want this one that just messes up the tool. It doesn't work that well for the height map input. So if we click this, it's going to give it like the default name that you gave it. It doesn't really matter what you name it here as long as you can still find the file in the other tool. So if we click save, it's going to say it exported it, that's great. And then we're going to go to the actual folder where I saved it, which is right here. I've also got heightmap GUI here installed. I'm just going to go open this up to show you what it looks like. So this is the actual height map of the island that we just saw in World Painter. So you can see the darker areas are lower and the lighter areas are higher. So these are the mountain peaks that you're seeing up here. That's this, these peaks here, and these valleys here are the darker area. So that's all the same color because it's the same flat plane. And then these really dark areas are the underwater areas, so where there's really no height data whatsoever. So this is what the actual height map will look like. The problem is that we want to turn this height map into a height map and a color map. We want to tell the exporter which height should which color be. So what we're going to do for that is go to paint.net. We're going to open up our height map, which we just created. It's going to look like this. It should be pretty big. So in this case, it's 2008. It's square, but it's a pretty big export. But it's good because each pixel here is going to translate to a 4x4 cube or an 8x8 cube in Brickadia. So we want to make sure that this isn't too big, because then we will get ridiculous map sizes and ridiculous brick counts. So what we're going to do is we need this plugin, which is a custom plugin that someone made, in this case Zach Walker. You can get that from the internet. I will give you the link, and this is just a way to map the intensity of each pixel here to a color. If we click this, just ignore that makes everything brighter. You can choose a source, which will be luminosity, and then that will look at the luminosity of each pixel, so how light or how dark it is. And based on that, it's going to give it a different color. So we can slide this around to make it cut off. We can slide this around to make it brighter in certain areas. But what we really want to do is add new colors. So you can add a color. In this case, I have a pre-made preset I'll share with you, but will show you how I would do it initially. So if you do it like this, you add a green color. Now there's green everywhere. For example, you change this dark black color to a more like a sandy color. And this is going to be really, really bad colors because I didn't prep this, but I do something like this. And then if we slide this around to the heights that we want, you can sort of start seeing what I'm aiming for. But I already made a pre-made preset, which I'll share with you, height map the color map. And what this does is if I click it, it will map all these preset colors here. You can also just change these whenever you want to whichever color you want. And what this does is it will change everything that's under the water line or slightly above it to a sandy, beachy color. It will do everything above that to green. And once you get high enough, it will be like this dying vegetation-ish green color. Above that, it will be gray, and at the very peaks, it will be snow. So this looks like a big flat green area. We'll still have the height difference because the height data is not coming from this map. It's coming from the height map to BRS input file, the black and white one. This will just be mapping each brick to each color. So this is what the color map looks like, and we're going to save that as well. So this will be the Stewart color map. So we'll save that. Should be the same dimensions as our height map. And if we now go here, we have our two files that we will need to create our Brickadia file. So we're going to go over to height map to BRS. I put the save file in here. It will just by default it will be just out, and it will output it in the same directory here as it would output it, or as where the input file is. You can just change this to your Brickadia directory. So this, in my case, this is where my Brickadia files are saved. So this is the builds. I have a separate folder for imports, and I made a separate folder for this tutorial. And then we can rename the actual file to Stewart tutorial, so I don't mess it up with the actual build one I'm having. Horizontal scale, so this is how big should each pixel be in game. I'm going to put this at 8 studs. And that will mean that each pixel represents one 8x8 cube. So I would always recommend this being either 1, 2, 4, 8, maybe 6, but it's easier to keep it in multiples of 2. I'll put it as 8 for this one. Vertical size is really up to you. That's how exaggerated you want the height data to be. So if you put this, I think for the other map I put it at 24 or 20. Either one of these works. You can also put it at 400, we'll just have a really steep mountains, or you can put it at 8 as well, and you'll have really gentle mountains. Really up to you. I always like to enable snap, to snap the bricks to the actual grid, so you don't have the stupid 1/10 offset and you're messing around with that. But this is just nice so that all of the studs line up with the global grid. Curl is very nice because it will just remove all bricks that you will not be seeing anyway, helps save on the brick count a bit. We have all of these options here, we will not need that. And I do believe this is actually an older version of height map to BRS. I think you can still update some stuff, but it's fine like this. You don't need any fancy stuff. We'll just leave it on default to get the default 8x8 cubes. We can put it as tile or stud or micro. Of course, if you put it on micro, it's going to be a lot smaller, but it's all options. And then we want the height map image and the color map image. So we're going to go and select the height map image, which should be right here. So we have the height map one and the color map one. So the height map one goes in the height map bucket, and the color map one goes into the color map one. And now we click generate save, and there's actually a console output here, so we can see the progress. It's going to take quite a while, because you can see it's just under or just over 1 million bricks. So it saved it, and we can go back to Brickadia. I'll of course clear this, because that will be key. Remove the water so we can actually see what's happening. 0. And then we load the imports tutorial, and then we have our export here. We should also mention that this is now built mostly by generator. That's because you can input the brick owner here. It's very useful to leave this as generator, because if you're building on your island and later on you want to change something on your island, which I actually have done a lot on the island I'm currently working on, you can clear generator's bricks, so your bricks will stay. You can make some changes in World Painter and then load the map again, and the changes will be there without having to mess around with all of your bricks. So we recommend keeping this on generator and not on your own name. But let's load it up and see how we did. So there it is. Island loading in. And then, depending on if I set the scale the same as I did previous time, we can actually put the water height at 145 in this case. It's going to be different for your height map. It's going to be really depending on your scale. But there we have it. That's how you get a nice custom island in Brickadia.